Hello, everyone. From Common Room Radio, I'm Elizabeth Stevens.
And I'm Sarah Kay Pazant.
And welcome to Disney Villain Deathmatch. Today, this one might be a little simple. This one might be no contest.
Basically, yeah. You know how, like, whenever you get a speeding ticket and you go and you visit the judge and you're like, well, I don't want to say that I'm guilty, but no contende? And then you just pay the ticket and leave?
I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, that's today's episode.
So, yeah, that might be what goes on. However, that being said, we do get to talk about one of my very favorite Disney villains.
Oh, is it Professor Callaghan from Big Hero 6?
Nope. We're going to talk about Jafar from Aladdin, who is one of the classic villains. I think he's absolutely great, and I have even more respect for him and for his animation after I learned back when we did the Sleeping Beauty episode for Disney Princess Deathmatch that the animator took a lot of his inspiration from Maleficent.
That makes a lot of sense.
Also someone who's my pick to win. Yeah, he actually did this picture of the two of them, of Jafar and Maleficent kind of eyeing each other, or maybe he was kissing Maleficent's hand or something.
That's amazing.
But it was like this homage, and you really saw just how much, like the way that they carry themselves and the billowing cloaks, and they each have a staff. And
they're very really angular, both of them.
Quite angular, yeah. So that was really neat. And he, I think, is just... Oh, God, he's villainous. He's really
he's
awful.
A classic villain for a reason. Because, he's a classic villain. He's a very, very good bad guy.
He's a good bad guy. Yeah. I totally agree. So why don't we start moving through our categories about what makes this guy such a damn good bad guy?
That sounds great.
All right. So, first of all, first impressions.
First impressions of Jafar. Well, he is pretty... you know that this guy is a not good dude from, like, moment one. We see him there in front of the Cave of Wonders, and he's talking to the little guy, and he's got Iago with him, and he's just... His presence and gravitas is immediate.
Gravitas. I like that. Yes, he's very sinister. He's very determined. And he actually, even right from the beginning, because we see him right away. We actually see Jafar before we see Aladdin.
Yes.
Am I right? Okay. Yeah. God, way different from Big Hero 6. Okay. Yes. So, but he also shows a lot of agency, which has been something that we are talking about with our other villains, not so much. So they're like, oh, little minion guy, go do this thing for me. But Jafar is in it. He is involved.
Yeah,
he is
really
pushing his agenda.
Work.
He does the work. That's right. Although my other first impression was, Iago.
No one likes Iago because Iago is kind of the worst.
Yes.
Did you say it's because of Gilbert Gottfried?
That's what I said. Yeah. It's a thing. It's a special thing. I think I thought he was funny when I was a kid. So
sure, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't even remember that from my childhood. I think I was always irritated.
The cracker thing, I'm pretty sure, made me laugh when I was a kid.
Okay, that's fair.
That's one
it's
thing.
A pretty good joke.
But,
sure, yeah.
He also is his like mystical, magical side, I think, is very cool as a villain. He's very devious. And then he's also just straight up manipulative.
He really is.
Emotionally manipulative and... very controlling of the Sultan. He's a bad
he even
dude.
Like magically controls the Sultan using his magic snake staff. Yeah. Jafar basically like is in charge from moment one. If Aladdin hadn't shown up, Jafar would have gotten everything he wanted.
You're absolutely right. And I don't want to even say Aladdin, the genie.
Yeah.
Well, Aladdin too, I guess. We'll get to that. We'll see.
Not really. They were going to like throw Aladdin in, but he needed Aladdin in order to get the genie and all this other stuff. So
that's true, I suppose.
Ambition is always what ends up really just wrecking up shop in the villain department.
True. Yep. And never more so than for Jafar. So what did you think of his villainous lair then?
His villainous lair. So he's got like that like the tallest room in the tallest tower or whatever going on, like his secret backdoor little science-y room. There's like some, I don't know, like some random beakers and stuff around.
A giant hourglass?
A giant hourglass and a treadmill for his parrot. When you say it like that. No, I thought that, it's okay as far as layers go. Again, I think that we've seen some more impressive layers prior to this.
I found his villainous lair very disappointing. Yeah. I have to say, that was my, if we were scoring and we're not, then that would be the lowest score, I think, would be for the villainous lair. It was just stones. It was a little more red in that side of the castle.
Dusty old room.
Just a little more sinister, which I get, a little more, but.
Sorry, what was that one more time?
Yeah, well, that's my villainous lair ambiance music. You're welcome. So, that's the red light made audible, made sound.
Oh, okay. No, it's perfect. You did it excellently. His lair is okay. It's not the greatest lair I've ever seen. But I think that he makes up for it. I mean, like, when you're a really great villain, you don't need a super good lair, right?
I suppose so. Yeah.
The whole palace is kind of
I
his
still
lair.
wouldn't want to, like, spend the night in that room or anything.
Well,
like,
no.
It's pretty creepy.
There's not a bed or anything.
Is there not a bed or anything? Where does he sleep?
He probably sleeps... I mean, like, he's the Grand Vizier. He's probably got, like, his own bedroom.
Oh, so that was just his lair.
Yeah,
lair,
yeah, that's just...
okay,
Yeah.
Fair, yeah. That was just, like, his office in the castle.
My evil office.
Fantastic.
So let's talk about his motivations really quick. So
Sure.
what are Jafar's motivations? What does he want? What's his whole deal?
He wants to rule Agrabah.
Yep.
I just need to rule it.
I just need to rule it.
Yeah.
He basically just wants to take control over the entire kingdom. He ends up, wanting to become a genie so that he can become even more powerful. He's very all about, he's power hungry. He wants power.
Yes.
He wants all of it. It needs to be his. And yeah, he just needs to rule it.
Yep. Okay. All right. Well,
Pretty standard motivations for a villain, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty standard. I like that. What's our next category?
Minions.
God, Iago's the worst, though, right?
Iago is really very terrible.
Is he helpful?
No, well...
Incompetent?
Okay, here's the thing. Iago is irritating, but, like, he does manage to get... I mean, you remember the part whenever Iago dresses up like a flamingo and then uses Jasmine's voice to, like, call out Aladdin? So, like, he can do the thing.
He's occasionally useful.
He's occasionally useful.
But obnoxious.
But obnoxious, which is fine because usually we get obnoxious and also useless.
Yeah.
Yeah,
true.
so
Okay.
I guess that's all right. I mean, as far as evil minions go, Iago is, I guess, just fine. I wouldn't want him as my evil minion.
True. He's no Flotsam and Jetsam.
He's no Flotsam and Jetsam. That's exactly right. How about the means to Jafar's end? What was he willing to accomplish?
Anything. He would do anything.
Yeah.
He would do anything. Mm-hmm. It got really creepy when he decided that he was going to marry Jasmine, and that would be the way that he would become ruler. Because then it just became, I mean, this gets dark, actually, if you really want to look at it, which I think we talked about in Disney Princess Deathmatch, if you want to go back and look at when we covered Aladdin and Jasmine. But yeah, forcing Jasmine to marry him is absolutely deplorable.
Yeah, it's really terrible.
And he gets, I mean, even just in the beginning when he's got the creepy teacher hands on her shoulders, then later he has her in literal chains as a literal sex slave.
Yeah.
It's bad.
It's really terrible.
And he would kill everyone. Like when he turned into the giant, before he was the genie, when he was like the powerful sorcerer.
Yes.
He would have killed just anybody.
Yeah, he really would have. So, yes, he was willing to...
He was straight up going to stab Aladdin after he came out of the Cave of Wonders,
He
too.
sure
Remember
was.
that?
Yeah,
He was just gonna stab him dead.
He was totally going to just, like, kill him right there, which would have been ideal.
And with his own hands, too. Not like send a minion, not like, lower him into the shark tank.
If it weren't for the monkey, then... You know what? If it weren't for Abu, Jafar would have gotten everything he wanted.
Maybe Abu is the real hero of the story. I like that.
Pretty interesting. But yeah, Jafar, very evil, very maniacal, very willing to do basically whatever it takes.
Master of disguise.
Yes.
The old man disguise was very good.
Yeah.
And again, very manipulative, too.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a good, smart villain. He gets a song. I mean, it's just a reprise. But
he does get a song.
He does get a song. I feel like
which
that's
we always
important to
appreciate.
note.
We really
I do.
like that. Yeah.
Villain songs are cool.
Yes.
They generally are. Man, the Scar song
is going to be really great.
It's real good.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very good. And so finally, let's talk about how did Jafar? How did he bite it? How did he end up kicking the bucket? So Jafar doesn't die. But he does get
tricked,
turned. He gets tricked and turned into a giant genie, phenomenal cosmic power, itty bitty living space, and gets trapped in the lantern. Gets trapped in the lamp and then flung out into the desert, and then returns in a sequel. But we're not covering the sequels.
Nope.
So, doesn't technically die, but is tricked into being trapped by the lamp, which is, pretty good.
I think it's good. Yeah, no, he did just get all caught up in his lust for power.
He really, really did.
So I feel like that's a pretty good way for a villain to go. Mm-hmm. That kind of hubris being one's own end always appeals to me.
Yes.
From a villain standpoint,
right.
I like that. So I actually appreciate that even more than a fight to the death, especially with Aladdin, because that would not have been fair in any way.
Right,
so the fact that Aladdin just outsmarted him.
Yes.
I like that. That was very good.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good. Excellent. Okay, so that's basically Jafar. So now let's talk about the bad guy from Big Hero 6, which I think we talked about a couple weeks ago. Initially, we didn't even remember his name.
That's right. Well, first of all, they do a lot of bait and switching with the antagonist in this show.
They sure
anyway.
do, yeah.
So, yeah, you think that it's going to be Cray, and it kind of is Cray. I mean, Cray's kind of a douchebag.
Well, I mean, Cray's just a businessman. Cray's basically just Tony Stark. But without the Iron Man suit. Yeah, he just has a lot of money. And I mean, Cray also, he's a businessman. He wants to get things to make more money, to have more things to get more money.
Sure. He's more like, what's his name? Justin Hammer?
Yeah, he's like Justin Hammer. You're exactly right. That's very, very good.
Pulling the Marvel knowledge at you.
I'm
Didn't
super
expect
proud
that
of
from
you.
Elizabeth. That's usually how Sarah rolls.
Yeah, well.
I know what things are.
I'm rubbing off on you finally, I think. So yeah, it turns out that our main antagonist is Professor something Callaghan. Professor Robert Callaghan. And what are your first impressions about Callaghan? First of all, so we watched this movie last night.
We did. I didn't get any first impressions of the villain until 30 minutes in. That's a long time, y'all, before you actually establish an antagonist. Now, granted, at that point, we had met Robert Callaghan, but we decided that we can't count that as the first impression of the villain. Because he was not yet a villain.
He's being like a legit super cool dude in that moment. Yeah, no,
he had not yet turned villainous.
Yes, exactly. So the first time we get a real look at Callaghan as the villain is when we see him in his spooky kabuki mask.
Spooky kabuki mask in the barn warehouse?
Yeah, in the warehouse.
We'll call it a warehouse. It's
sure,
not
yeah,
it's
probably
in the
not a barn.
Of the city. Yeah.
But he doesn't speak at all, and so you just see this guy who suddenly is sending all of these robots after Hero and Baymax. And, I mean, pretty standard super villainy type stuff, I guess.
I didn't feel very super villainy. Villainous. He was creepy and he was unsettling. Yep, that was all I got from
basically,
just at first. Creepy and unsettling. He did have the microbots, which made him somewhat superpowered, I guess.
Yeah. Well, superpower again in the same way that like Tony Stark is superpowered because it's the tech, right? The tech is the superpower. Yeah, just like Batman. So okay, let's talk about Callaghan's motivations. This episode is going to be such a wash. It's so sad.
So Callaghan wants to destroy everything Cray ever built.
Yes. So here's what happened. Callaghan
this doesn't make any sense to me. Please explain to me.
Yes, I'm going to do my best.
Motivations, why he felt the need to steal all the microbots and then kill everyone.
Okay, so here's what happened.
Okay. He started out really nice, a super nice really teacher guy.
Yes, I'm ready to come, 14-year-old boy, join my college.
Exactly.
Come to my nerd school. So Callaghan had a daughter, Abigail, who was a part, so Cray and his company, was it Craytech? It doesn't really matter.
Yes.
They were working on interdimensional travel and interdimensional transportation, basically.
Right. They had built a Stargate.
Yeah, I don't think that their intent
but it reminded
was to
me
go...
of Stargate, and I want to watch Stargate now.
Yes. Well, let's do that. I don't think that interdimensional travel was necessarily like their intent. I think that they were just trying to work on like transportation technology.
Like teleportation.
Like teleportation.
Also, it was called Project Silent Sparrow, which was pretty
really cool.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. But it turns
that's
out...
Cray and not Callaghan, so no points.
Right, exactly. So they're working on this teleportation technology, and then it turns out that there's an interdimensional component to it that just happens. Like they're throwing like a hat into it, and it goes in one Stargate and comes out the other one, and it's totally fine. So then,
calling them Stargates now.
Well, what else they call it?
I like it. Stargate's good.
Yeah, they called it something else, but I don't remember what. And so then Abigail goes in there, and Abigail, again, Callaghan's daughter, she gets into like her weird little like space pod, and then goes in, and then suddenly everything breaks, and I don't remember if that's really explained why. I don't know. So plot reasons. So her spaceship goes in there, everything starts breaking.
It was because Cray hadn't tested things enough.
Yeah.
He was rushing the project along.
Right, because he had like a military guy there.
Right.
And the general or whatever was like, no, we need to do this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he hadn't done enough testing. He hadn't gone through and like, worked on it enough.
Sure.
And so then the whole thing breaks down and Abigail is lost, presumed dead. She's now like lost in this, interdimensional thing. Callaghan gets super pissed off at Cray, yelling at him and saying that, he didn't do enough testing and that he took away everything that Callaghan had loved and cared about or whatever. Sure. So Cray basically in Callaghan's mind, kills Abigail. So
yes.
Callaghan then now has this whole revenge thing that he wants to now destroy everything that Cray cares about and built and put together for revenge for what Cray did to his daughter. So then Callaghan has the San Francisco Tech School or whatever does their student expo thingy, and Callaghan sees that Hero has put together all of these microbots and realizes, oh, I can use that to go and get like the various pieces of the Stargate, put it back together, and then send Cray and all of his stuff
that's what he
through the
wanted
Stargate.
to do.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, because the pieces were like everywhere and broken and all this stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and so because Hero was like, oh, you know, what could, because when he's showing off the microbots, he's like, you know, things that used to take people months or years, now one person can do in a day. So Cray's like, oh, okay, I can take that and then I can rebuild the Stargate.
Okay. See, this is the part where I missed a little bit of the plot because I got distracted by a whole lot of Dean Winchester gifs on Twitter.
Yep. It was a
Twitter.
good party.
It was a good distraction. I was really trying to pay attention, but again,
it's hard sometimes.
this antagonist is not compelling me, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, he's putting together the Stargate.
So he puts together the Stargate, goes to the Cray Expo. I keep using the word Expo because my vocabulary today also not really on point. We're recording this a little earlier in the day than we usually do.
Yeah.
And
I'm only in the middle of my second cup of coffee.
I've only had one coffee, and it was nice coffee, so that probably hardly counts.
I think the temperature of the coffee makes no difference, actually.
I believe it does.
Okay. Well,
Yep. You know how, like, whenever you're mixing henna dye and the heat is what releases the dye? I believe that in coffee, the heat is what releases the caffeine.
Okay. Well, believe what you want, sugar.
I'm gonna.
Okay.
Thanks. So Callaghan shows up at the Cray Tech Expo and puts together the Stargate and then is trying to basically kill Cray and destroy everything that Cray has put together without really thinking about, you know, well, what's going to happen whenever all of this goes to heck and everything starts exploding all over the place. I don't think that Callaghan wanted to kill everyone. He just
didn't care.
really wanted revenge
he didn't
on
care
Cray.
about collateral damage.
Yeah,
at
he
all.
lost his daughter and now the whole world has to suffer because I'm suffering.
Right. Yes.
So those are his motivations.
Okay.
His lair, well,
Are we counting the warehouse or the place
he
where
was
it had all the
working in the
pieces?
warehouse for quite some
I
time.
think the warehouse would be his lair.
Yeah.
Which was...
It's a very standard warehouse.
Well, it's very standard warehouse, like not standard lair.
No,
like,
yeah,
Jafar
no.
had a standard lair.
Yeah, so as far
Callaghan
as
had a very standard warehouse.
and then he had like an island where all of the original testing for Silent Sparrow occurred.
That was cooler.
Yes. Yeah. Warehouse,
that
not as
had that.
impressive.
Yes.
I was raised on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I know all about warehouse districts and how,
Fair.
you know, just bad stuff happens there, so I am unimpressed. But yeah, the island where all the testing was, I mean, like, it was all...
that was cooler.
It was cooler, but it was all fine, right? Like, it wasn't... None of it
Yeah.
was terribly impressive. It's just, like, industrial, broken down,
Yes.
you know, science facilities or whatever.
Yeah.
And a warehouse.
Yeah.
So yeah, not super great lair work there, Callaghan. You had the microbots. You could have built yourself something, like,
It's
really
true.
cool.
He could have had
Yeah.
a real sweet lair.
Speaking of microbots, let's talk about minions. So are we counting the microbots as Callaghan's minion? Here's the thing. He does not actually have any minions. Callaghan is working
He
alone.
doesn't have any minions.
And the microbots aren't sentient at all, so I don't think that they get to be counted. So yeah, he just
and
doesn't...
that is his superpower. It's like his
Yeah.
tech. Yeah, so I'm going to say no.
Yeah, so no minions for Callaghan, which is, I mean, I can admire that. I admire
Yeah,
a villain
sure.
who goes and
Yeah.
does their own work, and
That's
he
right.
certainly does do all of the work.
He does.
After that, means to their end. What was Callaghan willing to do to achieve his goal? Well, kill Cray, which was also his goal.
But
So-
he also was like, you know...
Oh, well, he
throwing-
did blow up the student thing. Like, he blew up the college
He
and
blew up the
killed
college.
Tadashi.
He caused tons of damage in that
Yes.
city.
Yeah.
Yeah. He blew up a couple of buildings.
Yes.
He threw a car at one point at a bunch of teenagers.
Yes. Yeah. And was
So-
going to murder this group of teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So
he was pretty ruthless.
yeah, he wasn't really messing around.
No, he was just blinded by rage. I think.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
Blinded by rage and revenge. Yep. And then finally, how did Callaghan die? Again, another one where Callaghan doesn't actually die. He just gets arrested at the end, and you didn't like this very much at
Okay,
all.
here's the problem. This is incredibly dissatisfying because I like Robert Callaghan in the beginning so much that I would have preferred that we saw a little bit of redemption for him in the end. That it would have been one of those stories where it's like, oh, he's a villain, but, you know, love wins or whatever.
Sure.
So I would have liked for the daughter to say, oh, daddy, how could you, or something, and him to just sob and beg for forgiveness and her to hug him, and then him to get in the police car and drive away and her sniffle a little bit would have been like emotionally moving for me and good.
Yes.
in a movie that had a lot of really good, emotional, touching moments like that. So it doesn't seem like that would be like, oh god, that's too dark though for them. Because I mean, hello, we killed Tadashi in like the opening sequences.
We sure
did.
did.
So, and then the goodbye to Baymax was pretty heartstring pulling.
I am satisfied with my care.
I'm satisfied with my care. Yeah. So I feel like that would have been fine, and it wouldn't have taken very much time. But instead, they just shoved him in a police car and he drove off, and it was just very. There was no closure for me. I would have liked some closure with Robert Callaghan and Abigail. What becomes of Abigail? I mean, does she? I guess. The next time
like?
they
What do
see
you
each
like?
other, it's like
I'm back. Where's my dad? How did everything go? Well, your dad went nuts and tried to destroy the city, so we arrested him. I'm sorry. What?
Yeah. So
my dad, the goofy professor. My dad.
He's such a sweetie. Yeah, I was pretty dissatisfied with his ending there.
Well, and especially if you're gonna
the fall, like the literal fall, where he climbed up all of the microbots way up high into the air until he ran out of them, and then fell, and Baymax caught him. That was pretty satisfying because again, it was that hubris thing. Like, I've got all the power in the world. Oh wait, no, I don't. So,
would you say that pride comes before the fall?
I guess I would. Yes, someone should coin that phrase.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, especially if you're going to introduce that, like, Abigail was still alive and still present and then not do anything with that. That is really interesting that we just don't do anything with that information. It's just, oh, well, your daughter's not actually dead, but she may as well be to you because you're still not getting any resolution there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, deeply unsatisfying is how I would say that his end went for me.
I agree. Yes. Okay, so let's pit these two against each other. I don't think it's going to be much of a contest.
I can't
personally.
imagine so. No. Although, I mean, the microbots are very cool.
Yes.
And because he is so rash and ragey, he's very determined, Callaghan.
Yes.
So, again, what, there's like a princess in a tower.
And
they both have to go get the princess. And
basically, yes. So there is a princess who is somewhere, presumably in a tower someplace.
Yeah.
And
you know what? Just for the sake of things, let's make it a dude. There's some guy. There's some like guy in a tower that's gonna get. I don't want to damsel anybody.
All right, so we're gonna damsel a dude instead.
We're gonna damsel a dude.
Excellent.
Yep. Let's say Tony Stark is in a tower somewhere. He has no access to any kind of tech.
Okay.
He is just in tidy whities and bound with rope in a stone room.
Listen, hang on, wait.
This is somebody's something.
I was about to ask, is this your something?
No.
This is very specific.
It's very specific. But no, I just want to make sure he doesn't have access to, like, no one is like, here, build me a monster weapon. Because that's how he escapes.
Yeah,
so
no, absolutely.
He's got nothing is what I'm saying.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
Like,
So
even
Tony
the smart
Stark,
Tony Stark cannot get out of the situation.
Tony Stark in his underwear, tied with rope, in a stone tower.
Yes.
And Jafar and Callaghan have to go get him?
Yes.
Why?
Because they need him to build him a weapon.
Okay, all right. Okay. Fine.
Right?
Okay, yes. Okay, good.
So, who gets to our boy Tony first? And
I don't know if I can take this seriously now. Okay, no. All right. So, who's going to get there first? Who's going to achieve that goal of saving Tony Stark?
Just retrieving
Tony Stark.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Well,
kidnapping
an already kidnapped Tony Stark. No, I'm into it. Okay, great.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Finders keepers, I guess, vis-a-vis kidnapping. Well, like you were saying, Callaghan does have the microbots, and so presumably would be able to just, like, shoot himself up to the top of the tower.
Like, he could get to the tower pretty quickly.
Yeah, and then just retrieve him and then go.
He could get Tony pretty easily.
Yeah, he really, really could. Jafar does have literal magic.
Yeah, but did we see his, like... What about for traveling? Like, could he get there faster?
Does he have a magic carpet?
He doesn't have a magic carpet.
He doesn't actually have the magic carpet, does he? Are we talking regular Jafar, Sorcerer Supreme Jafar,
no.
or Genie Jafar? Okay, regular Jafar. I feel like... Okay, isn't there a part in Aladdin when it's during the reprise and Jafar, like, just sort of, like, Glinda the Good Witch bubbles himself down to the cliff where, like, Aladdin and Jasmine and the Sultan all are?
Does he?
I feel like that's a thing that happens.
Bubbles himself down?
Well, I mean, like he just, like
floats
floats there. or whatever.
I do not remember that part.
Okay, we'll cut. Not cut it, but we'll forget that. All right. I mean,
Okay.
the dude's got magic. Like he surely
he
can
is
levitate
magical.
himself up there or like transport himself there somehow. But you're right. Previously, we've mostly seen him traveling via horse.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. So he's got that working against him. Just the getting there part.
Mm-hmm.
Getting in retreat. This is very interesting. I think.
Because here's the thing. Okay, once Callaghan gets Tony, how is he going to convince Tony to build him a weapon?
Oh no, Callaghan and Tony would be pals.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, that's fair. Because I was going to say that Jafar can literally
He's kind of a
manipulate
Bruce Banner
Tony
type.
into doing
That is
whatever
true.
Jafar wants.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I think in this scenario, I actually think that Callaghan will probably
Beat out Jafar.
beat Jafar.
Yeah.
However, that does not mean that he wins the game.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yes. No, I'm into that. Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
So yeah, all other things considered, even though I do think to give credit where credit is due, Callaghan and the microbots, and this is again, if he doesn't have those microbots, forget it. Game over.
he's super
That's
done.
the end.
Yeah,
He's done.
yeah.
That's his only thing.
Yep.
So, but if he's got the microbots, I actually think he can get Tony Stark out of the tower, and then the two of them could actually go on to build amazing things. And maybe Tony will help him get over his crap about his daughter. And say, I lost my dad too. I don't know. But anyway, I would watch that movie, is I guess what I'm saying.
I mean, Big Hero 6 is basically the Avengers for children.
Basically. And I really
Basically.
do like,
Yeah.
I like Big Hero 6.
Like,
quite
we
a lot.
liked the movie.
Very
It's
much.
just, there are antagonist
Just
problems.
antagonist problems.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to say Callaghan actually wins in the Tony Stark duel. Anyway. And that being said, though, that the master villain here, the classic Disney villain, the one who's going to go all the way, has got to be Jafar. He really
he's
got
is
it
better
going
in
on.
every other respect.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Well, and he is a villain.
Yeah.
And Callahan's not a villain. He's just a rage dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just very upset.
He's very sad.
just
He lost
needs-
his kid.
Medication, maybe, and a therapist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh.
And for someone to take the microbots away.
Yes.
And then he's zero threat to anyone.
Right. Also, we talked about we kind of skipped over this with means to ends and things. When Callaghan blows up the building to steal the microbots, that was probably unnecessary because if he had just let Hero go to his school, he probably would have just had access to those microbots.
That's the thing, too.
You
Yeah,
know?
we talked about that.
Yeah,
Like,
it was
just
unnecessary
in-
collateral damage.
He was in such a rush that he couldn't think straight. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was completely unnecessary. Not to mention, I'm sure he had lots of other projects and things that he was working on in there.
Sure.
Plus that the other kids were working on that could have
Well,
helped
and
him in
also
the-
he's the professor at the school. He's got classes and things and all this stuff that what you were just saying, all the other kids are working on, and
Right.
he just is nope, I'm gonna steal these micro machines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, you're right. If he had just given it a couple more weeks, he could have had
They would
access
have been
to
his.
them anyway. They
Yeah,
would have been his. Yeah.
Hero was already hero worshiping him. He could have just been
Yeah.
hey bud, can I borrow these?
Yep.
I
You're
will
totally
give
right.
them right back. I'm not like Cray. I'm not trying to buy them from you. I need these real quick.
Yep. You're right.
Yeah.
No, I think he just was not.
Yeah, Jafar was much better, I think, about master planning until he
Yeah.
got just a little too powerful there at the end, and then wasn't quite thinking straight because
That's true.
absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but otherwise, I do think that Jafar is going to. I mean, we knew that this was going to happen, but I do think that Jafar basically
There's no
takes
way we
it.
can give it to Callaghan, regardless of how impressive his Tony Stark kidnapping skills might be.
So
Which are all hypothetical, by the way.
Also, I have another very important question.
Sure.
Next week in the Deathmatch, is that going to be the thing? Are we done damseling princesses? Is it they have to go
we'll just
rescue
make
Tony
it-
Stark?
I don't know. Who knows what next week will be? And it's 2 weeks out, so I could be in any kind of mood. I do what I want.
That's right. Okay, so let me find our spreadsheet here. Okay, so in round 3 of Disney Villain Deathmatch, we had Jafar versus Robert Callaghan, and Jafar is the uncontested winner.
Uncontested winner. Yes.
Basically uncontested. So
Basically, I mean, Tony might say differently, but yes.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That adds so many variables that I don't know what to do with, which is totally fine. So in 2 weeks when we come back, round 4 is going to be the Evil Queen from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs versus Syndrome from The Incredibles.
Weird.
I wish that we had put Jafar against the Evil Queen and Callaghan against Syndrome.
Yep.
Yeah, that would have been wiser.
Made a little more sense. But here we are.
Because then you've at least got like your modern, quote unquote, like contemporary like villains against each other versus like your legit.
Although
like,
at some point, once we got to the end, it was.
That's true. Well, I mean, of course, but like for these initial rounds, I mean, you know, we moved Scar and Shere Khan around to get them against each other very specifically. I wanted those two. So let's see. Just to remind everybody of where we're at, coming up soon, we're gonna have Ursula versus Cruella de Vil. We're gonna have Jafar versus. Do you have a guess for next week? Who's gonna win, or for the next episode? Evil Queen or Syndrome?
I'm not sure. I mean, I love the Evil Queen.
Yeah, I mean,
again,
she is like
she might have to win just
Disney
because
villain,
of villain
right?
reasons.
Like she is the penultimate Disney villain.
Yeah, I've got to go with Evil Queen. I think
I actually
don't see how we
know.
don't move her along.
Yeah, I don't know which way I'm gonna. I mean, because I really enjoy The Incredibles. I haven't seen it in a really long time, and I think that Syndrome is a pretty good villain. But again, I do wish now, in hindsight, that we had Syndrome versus Callaghan.
And again, I think Syndrome is an antagonist, but not a villain.
Oh,
and she is a villain.
No, she's very. Yeah, she literally wants to carve out a 14-year-old girl's heart.
Yeah.
Whoa.
To be prettier than her. Damn. Yes.
Pretty evil. Okay, so that's going to do it for this week. So congratulations to Jafar. I always knew you had it in you. I knew that you were going to be the one. Again, because we basically couldn't even remember Callahan's name whenever we first sat down to do this. So thank you guys so much for listening to the show. We'll be back in a couple of weeks again with the Evil Queen versus Syndrome. You can find us over on Twitter at Common Room Cast, and you can talk about this show using the hashtag DVDM for Disney Villain Deathmatch. You can find me personally on Twitter at Elsa Grab the Salt.
I'm at Lizbeth Rave 555.
We're also over on Facebook at facebook.com/commonroomcast. You can visit our website, commonroomradio.com, where you can find all the other shows we've done, including Disney Princess Deathmatch, where we went through and judged every single Disney princess from Snow White to Moana and determined who the best one was. And that was a really fun show, and I really enjoyed doing that.
It was a really fun show.
We actually do scores over there. So, you know, if you're more interested in that sort of thing, you can head on over there and check that out. Head over to iTunes, leave us a rating and a review. If you like this show, if you want us to do more of this kind of thing, if you want to support us and help us, this is our job. Like, this is what we do, for income purposes. Then you can go to patreon.com/commonroomradio, where you can kick us $1 a month or whatever you can afford. We'll send you a postcard, and you'll get access to all kinds of exclusive shows. And I think that's basically going to be it.
I think that takes care of it. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much, and we will see you next time for Disney Villain Deathmatch.
Pum, pum, pum.
Nice. That was good.
You're welcome.
Bye.